having good taste is not enough. You can know exactly what looks good and still make work that nobody recognises as yours. So in this video, I want to show you how to turn taste into something much more valuable, a recognisable creative signature. I worked as a general videographer for a number of years, and it's a good start just to sort of test out a few different niches and avenues and styles and see what you like, and more importantly, what you don't like. And you develop taste as you go. You like this and you don't like that, and you aspire to make work like this guy and not that guy. You like these colours and not those, etc. And eventually you need to start to stand out, and usually taste is what makes you you. And it wasn't helping for me. It wasn't that the taste wasn't good enough. It was that I wasn't demonstrating it. I was doing work that covered the fundamentals, got the shots, solved the problems, didn't mess anything up, but it wasn't particularly stylized. What you have to say is becoming more and more important than just solving the right problems. That is a problem. People are coming to you for your opinion, for our taste, for how we see things and the way we execute them. So by hiding it or diluting it across 17 different styles, like I was creating work that just looked fine. And maybe fine gets you paid, but it doesn't get you remembered. And that's fun, really. I'd lose jobs to people who were technically weaker than me, not because I wasn't good enough, but because their work said something and mine was saying these 17 different things, which is kind of the same as saying nothing, right? I was getting hired as a tool, solve the problem, get the shots, don't mess it up. That's fine if you want to stay replaceable. But as a freelancer, you're not actually competing on who's cheapest or most available. You're competing on who they want to work with. And if your work doesn't say anything, neither do you. In my case, I was just a videographer, just a cameraman, and I'm seeing people who are getting hired over me, and I'm noticing a few things. A portfolio that says everything, says nothing, that was me. And the portfolio that says one thing quite clearly, that was them. That's their signature. And what I realised, most creatives consume excellent work all the time. They know what's good, they have taste, but they can't explain why it's good. And that gap between consumption and articulation is what prevents them from developing a signature. If you can't explain what you're drawn to, you can't intentionally replicate it in your own work. And copying is incredibly important in this shift that we're trying to make here. Taste alone is quite invisible. I find that signature is taste that's made visible through repetition, curation, and intentional decision making. So the shift you want to be making is this, from I'll know it when I see it, to I know why I see it, and here's how it shows up in my work. So how do you do that? Exercise 1 will be the 50-10 audit, and here's where I think you should start. Over the next 2 weeks, let's say, save maybe 50 pieces of work, any medium, something that just makes you stop scrolling. Don't overthink it. If it makes you pause and you want to save it, and then force yourself to cut it down to 10 absolute favourites. What you're going to do next is sort of write a sentence explaining why each of those 10 made the cut. So nothing like I don't like it, not it's good. Why is it good? What specific decision or element or feeling made you choose it? This reveals the pattern underneath your taste, the principles that you didn't know you had. For me, this process revealed something I hadn't consciously noticed even. I was consistently drawn to underexposed images. I don't want any clipping. I'd rather my work be too dark than blown out. And I don't think a lot of clients like this really, but for the right client, they loved how cinematic that felt. They loved these darker vibes, the desaturated colours, the sort of roll off from the skin. I discovered this by noting what I liked and seeing that this aesthetic kept showing up in those images I was sort of pulling. But I'd also discovered it through sort of my technical values. I love being able to see all the tonality of a cloud and a bright sky on a bright day, and everything within the shadow at the same time. I really value that larger dynamic range, and I really don't want blown out highlights. So this isn't just borrowed taste, it's intrinsic to how I work. It affects how I expose for ambient light, how I pack my bag, how I negotiate with clients on the day. When you're identifying a principle like this, something that's both aesthetic and rooted in how you make your own decisions, that's when you're building a signature. I've helped a few folks over the years develop their own style, and here's the thing that they got hung up on, and maybe you will. They think that having these constraints limit the creativity, forcing them to choose like just 10 from those 50, they feel like they're missing out on the 40 other things that they really loved and would love to see in their work. They're thinking that the constraints limit that creativity, but the opposite is true. If your palette is black, white and yellow, you'll do more with that work than if you had all the colours to choose from. Making specific decisions, working within certain constraints, that's what brings out creativity and the life in your work. A constraint is self-imposed. You could shoot with any aperture, but you decide to stay wide, open for a month. You could use any colour grade, but maybe just commit to desaturated greens and yellows. But a limitation is different. That's when it's more like an immovable object. It's the camera you're stuck with, the light that's only so strong, the location that you can't change. But even limitations like force creative solutions. I was working with this 120 watt light once. It's not strong enough with this big softbox to have an impact. So I had to use like the hyper reflective and like harsh direct light, or bounce it and just bring up that ambient light. These are two completely different looks, two very, very different aesthetics. That limitation forced a constraint, and the constraint created that signature. When you limit yourself, you're actually expanding your recognisability, if that's a word. Constraints create clarity, and clarity creates that signature. So then here's your next move. Pick one specific aesthetic principle that you keep responding to. Maybe it's the tension between minimalism and a moment of excess. Maybe it's the warmth in colour but the coldness in tone. Maybe it's everything needs breathing room, centralised subject, lots of space. Whatever it is, make it very specific for yourself, and then create 3 pieces of work in 1 week where that principle is the only consistent rule. Everything else can vary, subject, format, medium doesn't matter, but it will test 2 things. Does that principle hold up against different contexts, and is it genuinely yours, or are you just borrowing it from someone else? If it feels forced, it's not yours yet. If it feels natural, after 3 iterations, then you're onto something. Once you've identified 2 or 3 core principles, write them down. Create a 1-page sort of creative constitution, 3 to 5 non-negotiable principles that govern every decision you're going to make. So some examples might be every frame needs breathing room. Sound design does 40% of the emotional work. Never explain what can be shown. For me, it's things like expose for the sky first, and then bring the ambient where possible. No clipping, ever. I'd rather it be too dark than blown out. I'm shooting corporate work with backs to windows, they always want that. I'm going to fight tooth and nail to never do that. I'd rather be shutting all the windows and just using what I've got and having controllable light and just using that. I don't ever want to be shooting out of windows. And then pin this up and reference it before every project for like a month. These principles will become like your filter and your signature in action. Let's explore the concept of borrowed versus built taste. Folks will usually go a little off piece at this point. They try and develop a signature by copying what's already working. Borrowed taste is copying the effect without understanding the intention. You can put like a David Fincher style LUT on anything, but if your project isn't asking the same questions that Fincher's films would ask, you just cosplay. Short Stash has a style that gets copied constantly, but his style works for his subjects. It doesn't work for everything, and if you're not considering that, you're chasing a trend and you're not building a signature. So how do we avoid this? Stop by pulling from one source, basically. Pull from 10 instead. When your influences are Fincher plus Short Stash, maybe a specific colour palette, and how you transition between scenes and the typography you're drawn to, that collision becomes yours. You're not trend chasing at this point. You're building a new trend. As always, more inputs equals a more unique output. Aesthetic is the thing that people can copy. It's describable. It's like wide dynamic range, desaturated greens and yellows, underexposed shadows. Voice is a thing that people can't steal. It's the why behind your choices. Fincher's aesthetic is dark and moody, gritty textures, controlled camera movements, but his voice, that's his obsession with the systems breaking down, with control and precision unraveling. Short Stash's aesthetic is recognisable, the framing, the colours, skin tones, something being out of focus, the subject out of focus. But his voice is the choice of subject, the way he sort of explores vulnerability, the words that he uses in his videos, in his captions. That aesthetic gets you noticed. Your voice keeps you singular. So here's my advice. Focus on aesthetic first. It's faster to build, it's more tangible. But know that voice is what you're building towards. And voice doesn't come from looking at more work. It comes from living, from making decisions, from having a point of view shaped by experience. I think people should focus on aesthetic first and let voice be what it becomes. You develop voice by living. Aesthetic can be achieved by focusing on it. The biggest mistake creators make when trying to develop a signature is trying to perfect 5 pieces instead of just making 50. Early on, you're not expressing your taste, you're discovering it. And you can't discover something by overthinking, by sitting in a room and just wanting it and thinking it. You have to make enough work that the pattern shows up, whether you want it or not. By piece 5, you're still impersonating, but by piece 50, you're getting pretty close to something, and then by 100, it's just in your blood. The goal is to bring that conscious into the unconscious. You get a great idea by 50, but by 100, that's when you're really making your mark. Quantity leads to quality. Video 101 will always be better than video 5. So here's a bonus exercise that accelerates this whole process. Explaining your taste out loud. Once a week, publicly explain in a video, or a post, or a voice note why one piece of work is excellent. Use specific language, not vague praise. So it's not, this is good, but this works because the pacing slows down right before the emotional beat, and that gives the audience space to feel it before the music swells. That's the level of specificity we want to put ourselves in. Explaining your taste forces you to analyze it, forces you to make it make sense. Sometimes things just make sense to you because of the context that you have, and those things need explaining. As you go through the process, you discover more about your taste. You make better decisions, you validate your opinions, and when you put it out in public, you're strengthening those opinions. You might need to defend them even, and that's good because it means you actually understand what you're saying. Silent consumption doesn't acknowledge the glue that binds everything. Public articulation is what solidifies it. If I could give you only 3 principles to govern your creative decisions for the next month, here's what they'd be. 1, get out there and do. Who you are and what you care about reveals itself through action. You can't really soul search your way to this as much. You can't think your way into a signature. You have to make your way into one. 2, quantity leads to quality. Video 101 will always be better than video 5. If you've got a month to change your creative life, spend it making, not planning. Month 2 is when you kind of double down on what worked. And number 3, the art of flipping things on its head. The to-do list is great, but have you tried the to-don't list? Knowing what you don't want to do, I find is more powerful than knowing what you will do. I don't do weddings. That decision saves me hours of mental energy. Every time a wedding inquiry comes in, or anytime anyone discusses it, I can just say no instantly and just spend the time making the work that I actually want to be known for, to finding the clients that I do want to be working with. Constraints aren't limitations, they're clarity. Turning taste into signature is the difference between a Seth Godin purple cow and a field of normal cows. One tasteful video is nice, but 10 tasteful videos that all say the same thing, that's a signature. And that's the moment that people stop seeing individual pieces and start seeing you. I think that people love boxes, they love clarity. This person does that, and the clearer the box, the more valuable you become. So for the blokes out there, this is why the shampoo is more expensive than the 9-in-1. If you want me to expand on anything, then drop it in the comments below. And check out this video here that YouTube reckons you'll like. Catch you in the next one.